here are the top stories of the news. President Tinubu approves deployment of troops to Kaiama area of Kwara State. ADC condemns Senate's decision to reject key provisions of the Electoral Act Amendment Bill. On the foreign scene, Ukraine-Russia begins second day of U.S. brokered talks in Abu Dhabi. Good afternoon and welcome to Spring News at 12 on Western Spring Television. I am Timitope Ajijolaoluwa Ola. We begin in Kwara State as Governor Abdulrahman Abdulrazak on Wednesday night said President Bola Tinubu has approved the deployment of troops to the Kaiama area of the state. Governor Abdulrazak explains that the battalion known as Operation Savannah Shield is expected to flush out bandits in Kaiama and the National Park in Niger State. The governor announced this at the palace of the Emir of Kaiama, Muazi Umar, where he describes the attack as genocide, assuring that the bandits within the two states would be flushed out. Earlier, the Emir of Kaiama, who was nearly moved to tears, said 75 villagers in Woro were massacred due to their refusal to be brainwashed and indoctrinated by the bandits who were preaching un-Islamic teachings to them. The member representing Guanabe, Gueria, Bani, Adena in the State House of Assembly, Ahmed Baba, gave an initial tone of 35 to 40 dead, but said more bodies would be found as many wounded people had fled into the bush. Meanwhile, the head of Woro community, Umar Bio Salihu, said the armed bandits operated for about 10 hours in the area before security operatives arrived, leading to dozens of deaths.
Your madness. The sort of departed rest in peace. We can see issues of ideology, religious ideology. Citizens here resisting the sort of ideology that is alien to them. 75 have been buried. Short of words. Thank the security agencies for their work. Also commend the President for deploying the troops that the new battalion coming in the operation. Savannah Shield will take over from the southern axis of the operation Kaiama. So things will certainly get better here. We're on the border with Niger State, right at the border with Niger State, and the Kanji forest where they are. So this issue is being tackled. We're also on the border with the Republic of Benin. We have challenges from non-state actors coming from across international borders, across Niger State into Kwara. So when they after that.
Meanwhile, a former presidential candidate under the umbrella of the Labour Party in the 2023 election, Peter Obi, has condemned the recent killings in Kwara State, describing the attacks as tragic and a major failure for the country. Obi, in a post on X today, said he was deeply saddened by reports that gunmen killed about 150 people in communities, including Woro and Nuku, offering condolences to the families of victims and the government and people of the state. The former Anambra State governor said the recurring violence across the country underscores the need to confront insecurity, warning that the situation had worsened beyond what is seen in some war-torn nations. He further urged relevant authorities to act swiftly to restore peace, bring perpetrators to justice, and reassure Nigerians that their lives would be protected. In Kaduna State, Governor Ubasani has confirmed the return of 82 worshippers who were abducted by bandits during a church service in Kumenwali village, Kajuru local government area on January 18. The governor made the disclosure during a visit to the rescued victims at the Women and Children's Shelter in Kaduna, where they are currently receiving medical care and psychological support. It should be recalled that bandits attacked the village during worship and abducted 177 congregants. 11 victims were reported to have regained freedom earlier, leaving 166 in the captivity before the latest development. During the visit, Governor Sani expressed sympathy to the victims over their ordeal and reassured residents that efforts were ongoing to secure the release of those still held by abductors. The governor further reiterated his administration's commitment to ending banditry and kidnapping across the state, stressing that no effort would be spared until all captives are safely rescued and reunited with their families.
We're here with the 82 that have now returned back home safely. And of course, we're here to give them assurance that the remaining, by the grace of God, they'll all be back safely by the grace of God. And I have no doubt in my mind that the rest will also be back. And of course, as you're aware, they're all here undergoing psychosocial therapy, and we are trying to ensure that our medical doctors check them very well. And of course, we know that they've gone through a lot of trauma, and of course, it is a very difficult situation. And as a government, it's our responsibility to ensure that all of them are certified medically fit.
Down south, operatives of the Oyo State Police Command have arrested a murder suspect and recovered a locally fabricated firearm. The command in a statement said the arrest was made at the Budopano area of Tede following a reported murder incident. The statement issued by the command's public relations officer, DSP Anyolade Olayinka, said officers acting on credible intelligence apprehended Yarosaka in connection with the death of Amadou Saliu, while a locally made single-barrel gun was recovered at the scene. Police said the suspect confessed to the crime and is cooperating with investigators by providing information to aid a thorough probe. The command also disclosed that it quelled a coach-related disturbance at Jobele area, where operatives responded to reports of a violent fracas and rescued Abraham Atunde, who sustained stab injuries. Vice President Kashim Shettima has applauded Ebonyi State Governor Francis Nwifuru for his efforts in restoring peace following the Eso Eda Amasiri crisis in the state. He described Governor Nwifuru's handling of the crisis as mature and unbiased, expressing confidence that the approach would bring lasting peace to the affected communities. He made this known while speaking at the Vision 2050 Southeast Stakeholders Forum held at the International Conference Center in Enugu. The Vice President called on the people of the Southeast to leverage the region's vast mineral deposits to drive industrialization, noting that the federal government remains committed to regional development anchored on aligning national policy, resources, and political will in support of the Southeast Vision 2050. According to him, the Southeast is strategic to the federal government's development initiatives due to the region's entrepreneurial spirit, urging leaders in the region to galvanize support for President Bola Tinubu. And now turning to politics, the African Democratic Congress ADC has condemned the Senate's decision to reject key provisions of the Electoral Act Amendment Bill, warning that the move undermines the credibility, transparency, and integrity of the electoral process. The Senate declined a proposed amendment to Clause 70, subsection 3 of the Electoral Amendment Bill that aims to make the electronic transmission of election results mandatory. Explaining this to the Senate stance, the President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, noted that the chamber did not outrightly reject the proposal, but rather chose to maintain the current provision in the Electoral Act. In a statement issued on Thursday and signed by its spokesman, Bolaji Abdullahi, the party described the Senate's action as a deliberate attempt to weaken democratic safeguards and prepare the ground for electoral manipulation. The ADC particularly faulted the Senate's rejection of electronic transmission of election results, which it said was critical to protecting the will of Nigerian voters. According to the ADC, the rejected provisions were designed to strengthen electoral safeguards and restore public confidence in the system.
But the social media already is awash with the fact that the Senate has rejected electronic transmission. That is not true. That is not true. Electronic transmission had always been in our act. And what we did was to return the electronic transmission, which had been in our act and which was used in 2022. Let me just mention the fact that there was no deliberate attempt on the part of the Nigerian Senate to delay the amendment of the Electoral Act. Our intention had always been to ensure that we do our best and we do it painstakingly.
And now to the courts. The Federal High Court sitting in Abuja on Wednesday rejected a document tendered by the former presidential candidate of the African Action Congress, Omoyele Sowore, which alleged the President Bola Tinubu in 2011 described former President Goodluck Jonathan as a drunkard. The exhibit also said to contain claims that President Tinubu referred to the former Nigerian leader as a sinking fisherman was rejected after the court held that the witness through whom it was presented discerned the document. Trial Judge Justice Muhammad Umar declined to admit the exhibit, noting that the prosecution witness distanced himself from its contents. The witness, Cyril Nosike, an operative of the Department of State Services, and the first prosecution witness told the court under cross-examination by Showore's counsel, Abubakar Mashal, that he was not aware that the president made such remarks about the former president. Relying on the witness's position, counsel to the DSS, Akinlolu Kehinde Asayan, objected to the admissibility of the document, arguing that it failed to meet the requirements of the Evidence Act since the witness was not the maker. Following a similar objection by the prosecution, the court also rejected another document tendered by the defense, which alleged that Tinubu had described former President Olusegun Obasanjo as an expired meat. The convicted leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, Nnamdi Kanu, has filed a notice of appeal at the Court of Appeal, challenging his conviction and multiple sentences imposed by the Federal High Court sitting in Abuja. Kanu is insisting that his trial was riddled with fundamental legal errors and amounted to a miscarriage of justice. In the notice of appeal dated February 4, Kanu said he was appealing against his conviction and sentences on 7 counts, including terrorism-related offenses, for which he received 5 life sentences and additional prison terms after being found guilty on November 20, 2025. In his grounds of appeal, the IPOB leader accused the trial court of failing to resolve what he described as a foundational disruption of the original trial process following the 2017 military operation at his Afara Uku residence. He also contended that the court proceeded with the trial and delivered judgment while his preliminary objection challenging the competence of the proceeding remained unresolved. He claims that the trial courts convicted him under a law that had already been repealed, stating that the trial judge erred in law by convicting and sentencing him to under the Terrorism Prevention Amendment Act 2013, notwithstanding its repeal by the Terrorism Prevention and Prohibition Act 2022 prior to judgment. You're watching Spring News at 12 on Western Spring Television. We'll be right back after this break. Please stay with us.